Water dripped with a steady plink, plink, plink in the dark, mysterious dragon's cave. A woman in a lavish gown, with blonde hair and blue eyes, awoke to a wave of pain. She winced, hissing through her teeth. Ah, that hurts. But then, a shocking realization hit her and her eyes filled with disbelieving joy. I'm alive, but a look around the cave, at the skulls and bones scattered everywhere, sent a wave of fear through her. She screamed. Fear and confusion seized her. Her voice trembled. This is the dragon's cave? The regent, in a fit of rage, had declared that Princess Hina Bosatar had betrayed the kingdom and was sentenced to be hanged. But the new queen, the second Princess Tina, was kind-hearted. She persuaded her older sister to offer herself to the dragon in exchange for the kingdom's peace. The regent then gave the order to set out, delivering the sacrificial bride to the Black Dragon King of Black Rock Cave. Bound by a spell, Hina struggled painfully, crying, "No!" She insisted she hadn't betrayed anyone. Meanwhile, Ansel held Tina, comforting her. Don't be afraid, Princess Tina, I'm here. In the end, Hina was thrown into Black Rock Cave. Inside the cave, Hina felt herself over. But I'm still alive, she thought. Is it because the dragon isn't in its lair? She looked at the skeletons of all shapes and sizes scattered around her. I can't stay here. These are all sacrifices. I have to get out of here. She decided she had to find a place to hide. She felt a cool breeze from deeper within the cave. Great, there's wind coming from this way, she said, overjoyed. Following the breeze, she thought there might be an exit. But the cave was too dark, lit only by a few flickering firefly-like spirit flames. Suddenly, she noticed something up ahead. Who's there? She called out. As she drew closer, she took in the sight before her and gasped. Gods! There's someone else here? After checking him, she thought nervously, is he alive? She found a heartbeat and was thrilled. Thank goodness. But her relief quickly turned to worry. He's so weak, though. His injuries are worse than mine. He might die if I leave him like this. She looked up at the small opening high above. I probably can't get out of here by myself. She wrestled with the decision. What should I do? Should I save him? Finally, she made up her mind. I'll do my best. She clasped her hands together and thought, I don't know if I have enough power left for a sacred heal. Focusing her mind, she tried to cast the spell, mustering all her strength. She saw a bone shard sticking out of the man's chest and realized, gasping for breath, that it was the cause of his fatal wound. With a great effort, she pulled it out. The man cried out in pain. After flinging the shard aside, she knew she had to heal the wound and stop the bleeding immediately. Propping herself up, she grunted with effort. I can do this. She channeled her magic, softly calling out, Wake up, my knight. The man slowly opened his eyes. Hina was overjoyed. You're awake. But when the man awoke, his eyes glowed with an eerie red light. He suddenly reached out and grabbed her, and in the next moment, pulled her into a tight embrace. A halo of magical light enveloped them. The man seemed to regain some clarity, only to fall back into agony. Hina cried out, Ow! The man then fainted again. Looking at the collapsed man, she sighed. Why did you pass out again? After all that effort, Hina was panting but had a hint of a smile. I did it. She looked at the man, thinking with relief. Great, I'm not trapped in here alone. But as she spoke, she collapsed from exhaustion. In the cave, both Hina and the man were severely injured. Hina even coughed up blood. Just then, a red, dragon-shaped mark appeared on her body, and a mysterious power began to surge. A deafening roar echoed through the cave as a giant dragon, bound in black iron chains, appeared. It radiated a scorching red glow as if it had come from a fiery hell. You are not worthy to be king! The chained dragon roared, its voice carrying so much magical power that the cave itself trembled. Blood splattered. The man heard the words, his eyes wide with shock. Already badly hurt, he was now gasping for breath, his gaze falling on Hina with confusion. A human? He suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. As the power inside him raged, he roared in agony, then realized he was trapped in a human form. He looked at the weak Hina beside him, completely bewildered. Was I really saved by a human? When Hina's small hand held his, he was even more surprised. So small and so soft. Where did she get the strength to save me? Hina began to shiver violently. Cold. So cold. The man watched her, thinking, is she sick? Or is it because she saved me? He tried to use his purple magic to heal her, but it only made her scream in pain, making things worse. He grumbled. How was I supposed to know humans were so fragile? When he saw the dragon-shaped mark on her, his expression changed. Ha, he sneered. I guess this is all the power I have left. He felt it was pathetic to be saved by a human, but looking at the mark, his tone shifted. A golden flame ignited in his hand. However, he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Since you now bear my mark, I have a responsibility to take care of my own. The man lit a golden fire in the cave. Watching it crackle, he thought smugly, my fire is still good for something. Hina let out a soft whimper. The man looked up at the starlight shining through the opening above, and thought, can I ever soar through the sky again? In that moment, the light and shadows in the cave shifted, as if holding a magical power that could help him return to the heavens. Waking up in the dragon's cave, Hina looked around in surprise. Huh? Then she remembered. Right, I'm in the dragon's cave. I saved this person. She looked at the man and complained. What kind of cheap sacrifice is this? They didn't even give him clothes. Just as she was covering him with a cloth, the man's eyes snapped open. Hina jumped back, startled. Were you also offered as a sacrifice to the dragon? She asked curiously. You were badly injured yesterday. What's your name? What kingdom or tribe are you from? The man tried to recall the human language. Seeing his confused expression, Hina waited. He finally stated his name, Oliglesh. Hina introduced herself as Hina Lane, cautiously hiding Bossatar since it was a royal surname. She decided to find some clothes for Oliglesh first. He, meanwhile, was thinking to himself, does she think I'm a fellow human? Besides human sacrifices, there were also food, silks, and other goods in the cave. Oliglesh grumbled internally about how humans were always throwing things into his cave. Hina was focused on finding clothes. When she picked up a piece of fabric, a strange glint appeared in Oliglech's eyes. He noticed the dragon-shaped mark on her shoulder and thought, a hint of magic in his tone, are you a sacrifice for me too? Hina found a set of clothes that seemed to fit. Oliglech, however, was reluctant. Do I really have to wear this? He muttered. After all, he wasn't used to caring about such things in his own territory. I saved your life, Hina said urgently. We can't stay here. She pushed him to change quickly so they could plan their escape, reminding him the dragon could return at any moment. Hearing the words, the dragon, Oliglech thought mockingly of how, in the eyes of humans, just living here made him an evil being. As he fumbled with the clothes, he asked, is this how you wear this thing? Hina found him infuriating. Oliglech thought to himself, you just saved the very dragon you're talking about. In a corner of the cave, bathed in a faint blue glow, water dripped from the stalactites. Hina leaned weakly against the cold rock, her voice a choked sob. Ugh, so thirsty. Oliglech held Hina, who had fallen ill from dehydration. She was just talking about escaping, and now she's sick again, he thought, exasperated. Humans are so delicate. But in the next second, his pupils constricted, and a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. In her delirium, Hina softly called out a name, Ansel! Oliglech's heart lurched. Who? He demanded. In her dream, sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of a magnificent palace, casting dreamlike patterns on the floor. A young Hina and Ansel ran hand in hand through a grand hall filled with fluttering butterflies. Ansel, wait for me, Hina called out cheerfully. They greeted the high priest Velansar, who held a glowing scepter and was surrounded by a holy light, and excitedly began their lessons in sacred healing. By the window, Hina asked Ansel if he wanted to be the high priest. Ansel nodded firmly. Later, they held hands in the sunlight, and with a look of aspiration in her eyes, Hina said she wanted to become queen so she and Ansel could protect the kingdom together. Ansel smiled back. Okay, we'll protect it together. An adult Hina gasped for breath, her forehead covered in sweat. As her vision cleared, she was horrified to see her beloved teacher Velansar lying on the ground. A cold, gleaming sword was plunged into his chest, and blood was pooling around him, staining the floor red. Overwhelmed by grief and shock, Hina stumbled to his side. Teacher Velansar, she cried, her voice trembling. Teacher, how could this— No, this is impossible. She clasped her hands, closed her eyes, and began to chant an ancient healing spell. But suddenly she felt the holy light within her turn chaotic, as if a dark power was twisting it. To her horror, a blood-red magic circle had appeared on the floor, its runes glowing with an eerie light. Teacher Velansar's body, lying in the center of the circle, began to be corrupted by the dark magic. This is dark magic! My sacred heal is being converted! Hina was terrified and confused. She had only come to the temple to ask her teacher about her parentage, but after stepping inside, she had felt dizzy, as if under a spell. When she came to her senses, this was the scene before her. A set of hurried footsteps approached. The regent arrived with his guards. They were all stunned by the sight. The regent pointed a trembling finger at Hina. Your Highness, that is your teacher. How could you kill him? Hina froze, her eyes wide with disbelief. What are you saying? You think I did this? The regent sighed, his tone complicated. Your Highness, I know the questions about your parentage have been troubling you. But your teacher had his reasons for keeping it from you. You didn't have to go this far. Hina was completely lost. She and Ansel had agreed to ask her teacher about her past together, but Ansel never showed up. He had mumbled something about being busy. Looking at him, Hina's heart filled with doubt. Now, the regent's words echoed in her mind. She suddenly realized that ever since the rumors about her parentage began, a sinister plot had been woven around her. She had been framed for murdering her teacher, accused of practicing dark magic, and branded a traitor, all to be thrown into Black Rock Cave, the dragon's lair. Hina was pulled from her memories by Oliglek's voice. He ran his fingers through her hair, a teasing note in his voice. Hey, Miss Hina, I've never done anything bad to humans. How did I end up as an evil dragon? As he spoke, he fell into his own memories. He remembered summoning tidal waves that ravaged coastal human villages. He remembered breathing fire on a flock of sheep, turning them into a delicious barbecue. Yet he looked at Hina with an innocent expression and said, I've never done anything bad to humans. How did I end up as an evil dragon? Oliglek's expression hardened. He looked up at the broken moon, fragmented by the leaves above the cave opening. I always liked coming to the human lands to play, he murmured. Maybe I did something wrong. Just then, a bolt of lightning split the clouds, illuminating a massive dragon silhouette outside. Your Highness! A dragon attendant's anxious cry cut through the wind and rain. Come back to Dragon Island. Your father is dying. Oliglek's draconic aura flared. He let out a deafening roar, but his blue dragon's breath was mixed with a sorrowful whimper. I didn't get to see my father one last time. His body had shown signs of decay for a while, but, Uncle, you said it wasn't serious. How could it happen so suddenly? His uncle, surrounded by a strange purple-black aura, swooped down with a sinister grin. Ollie, my dear nephew, I hear you love visiting the human lands. I'll grant your wish. How about you stay a human forever? After all, you are not worthy to be king. Several black dragons simultaneously unleashed streams of fiery breath, which coiled around Oliglek like golden pythons. He was forced into his human form, cold chains piercing his chest. His uncle's vicious voice echoed in his ears. You should be content to die as a human. Hina's concerned voice brought him back. Are you okay? You looked like you were trapped in a nightmare. He wiped the sweat from his brow, trying to look composed. I'm fine. When she tried to say more, he avoided her gaze. Don't waste your little bit of power on me, or you'll just get sick again. Hina clutched her clothes and whispered in protest. I'm not that weak. But her voice grew tense again. But we can't just sit here and recover slowly, can we? If the dragon comes back, we're both dead. You saw what happened to the other sacrifices in the main cavern. We can't just wait to die. We have to find a way out. Her voice dropped, ending in a sob. I want to go home. Oliglek was silent. He looked into her emerald green eyes, shimmering with tears, and thought of his own Dragon Island, a home he could no longer return to. A bitter smile touched his lips. Home. A golden light flashed in Oliglek's eyes. Hina's word, home, was like a key that unlocked his own buried obsession. That's right, I have to go home too. The determination in his voice was so strong it made the water droplets on the cave ceiling tremble and fall. I'm going back to Dragon Island and I'm going to turn that place upside down. While Hina was still stunned, he grabbed her wrist with his warm hand. Then let's go. I know a way out. Hina's eyes widened. Huh? Wait, how do you know? Oliglek looked down at their joined hands, a mischievous smile playing on his lips. My fragile little human. While you were sleeping, I was quite busy, Miss Hina Lane. That included scouting a path. Hina's cheeks flushed and she muttered, I'm not fragile. She was so flustered she didn't even notice his teasing tone. But the path is a little tricky, Oliglek added. A little? Hina blinked, confused. The two entered a deep cave passage. Hina conjured a soft ball of light to illuminate their way. Oliglek, watching her, thought to himself, since she's so terrified of dragons, I don't mind pretending to be human for a while. Hina looked ahead at the unknown path, thinking, I guess I just have to trust him. Oliglek led Hina to the edge of a cliff in a cavern filled with glowing blue crystals. 3, 2, 1, jump, he yelled. They leaped into the air. Seeing the distant ledge on the other side, Hina panicked. It's so far! What do we do? Oliglek, however, was calm. As Hina stared in disbelief, she suddenly felt lighter. Looking down, she saw that the hem of her dress had transformed into emerald green wings. Oliglek held her and teased. Scared? If you're scared, hold on tight. What are you doing? Hina asked nervously. Getting us out of here, of course, he said with a grin. Holding her, he used the power of the wings to soar through the cavern like a bird. The cave suddenly shook and loose rocks began to fall. The ledge beneath Oliglek's feet crumbled. Ollie, watch out, Hina screamed. Hold on tight, I'm jumping up, he yelled. He shot towards the opposite cliff face like an arrow, a golden light swirling around him. Hina felt the wind rush past her ears as the blue crystals flew by like stars. Oleg landed steadily on a platform below, the impact causing another slight tremor. He was breathing hard, sweat beading on his forehead. I've never felt so weak. This human form is exhausting. Hina stared at him, her heart pounding. He's so strong. How could someone this powerful be offered as a sacrifice to a dragon? And how did he get that fatal wound? Seeing her dazed expression, Oleg asked, "Scared stiff? Can you still walk?" Hina quickly snapped out of it. I can. He raised an eyebrow. I wouldn't mind carrying you the whole way, you know? Hina's cheeks burned. Thank you for what you did back there, she said softly. Oleg's lips curved into a slight smile. I told you I'd get you out. He took her hand. Don't just stand there. Let's go. They walked through a cave passage filled with strange, glowing green plants, heading toward the exit. Outside, the sunlight was blinding. She raised a hand to shield her eyes, gazing at the wide valley before them. Green grass stretched out, a river snaked through it, and herds of wild horses galloped freely. Wow, we're really out, she exclaimed. She excitedly grabbed Oleg's arm. Ollie, thank you so much for everything. Oleg just grunted, feigning indifference. It was nothing. Hina clasped her hands together, her eyes full of hope as she asked carefully, So now, are you going home too? She knew that now that they were out of the cave, she would probably have to walk her own path. Oleg looked at her and smiled. What about you? Where do you want to go? Hina blinked in surprise. She stammered, at a loss for words. She looked off into the distance, thinking of the Highland military camp closest to Black Rock Mountain. General Serdian, who guarded the camp, had taught her to ride and was loyal to her. I could go to him for help first. Her eyes lit up. I want to head southwest. My home is in that direction. Oh, then I'm going southwest too, Oleg replied instantly. Hina was stunned again. Oleg started walking. Well, let's get going then. Hina ran to catch up, grabbing his hand. Are you coming with me? She asked in disbelief. As they walked, Hina remembered that Oleg had been thrown into the dragon's cave with a fatal wound. Her heart tightened. He probably can't go back home, so we can still be together. She stopped him, catching her breath. Ollie, wait. The place I'm going is still pretty far. Walking will be too slow. Hina spotted the herd of horses nearby, and her eyes lit up. It would be great if we had mounts. I've learned how to tame horses. Let me try. Oleg looked surprised, muttering to himself, You can ride those things? I usually just eat them. Hina held out a handful of strangely fragrant berries to a white horse. The horse sniffed them, and she gently stroked its head, a faint golden light of comfort emanating from her fingertips. Easy, girl. That's it, she whispered. The horse nuzzled her hand contentedly. Just then, a brown stallion suddenly became agitated, rearing up and aiming its hooves at Hina. Hina! Oleg shouted, rushing over, and pulling her into his arms, narrowly avoiding the attack. Hina screamed. Oleg held her tightly, feeling her tremble. The white horse and the brown stallion were now fighting over the berries. Suddenly, an invisible pressure radiated from Oleg. The two horses froze instantly, their eyes filled with terror, as if they were facing a natural predator. Oleg pointed at the brown stallion. You, get out of here, he said coldly. The stallion, shaking with fear, didn't dare to stay. It bolted, leaving a cloud of dust behind. The white horse also lowered its head obediently, not daring to move. Oleg looked at Hina and said softly, Let's ride this one. You'd already tamed it anyway. Hina nodded vigorously. They mounted the white horse, which took off like a bolt of white lightning across the grassland. Ollie, I found some wild fruit, Hina called out excitedly, holding up a bright red berry. Let's take a break and have something to eat. Oleg looked at the fruit and thought, I want meat. Just as she was thinking, a strange gurgling sound came from the lake. Hina turned to see the water churning as a dark shadow rapidly approached. The next second, a fish monster with rows of sharp teeth leaped from the water, roaring with its mouth wide open, about to bite her. Hina screamed. Oleg, with lightning speed, pulled her into his arms and grabbed the fish monster. Holding the struggling creature, he asked Hina, Can we eat this thing? Hina quickly waved her hands. No, that's a fish monster. They're vicious. And they're poisonous. Oleg clicked his tongue in disgust, tossed the monster aside, and took a bite of the fruit Hina had found. Hina watched him, wondering, why would he want to eat something so terrifying? The wind whistled, and the flags of the Highland camp fluttered from the watchtowers. Oleg rode the white horse with Hina behind him to the front of the camp. We're here, he said. Hina took a deep breath and pulled her hood down to cover most of her face. General Serdian has been stationed here for a long time. The soldiers are loyal to him, so it should be fine. But I still need to be careful. She said to Ollie Gleck, Ollie, wait here for a moment. I'll go and say hello. Hina walked toward the camp gate. The guards on duty looked surprised to see her. They stopped her, their voices sharp. Halt! Who goes there? Hina tried to keep her voice steady. Please inform General Kurdian that a Miss Vasina Lane wishes to see him. One of the guards stared at her, the clinking of his armor a soft metallic sound. Who are you? What business do you have with the general? Hina felt a little flustered and was at a loss for words. Just then, Oleg strode over, a dark purple energy seeming to flow around him. What are you looking at? He said in a low voice. Have you stared long enough? The guards, intimidated by his presence, backed away. Oleg naturally pulled Hina into his arms, and she could feel a strange warmth radiating from him. Inside the camp, a guard hurried to report to General Kurdian. General, a lady calling herself Miss Vasina Lane is here to see you. Kurdian, who was reading a book, replied casually, I don't know her. Tell her I'm not available. But when the guard repeated the name, Miss Vasina Lane, Kurdian shot up, a memory from his childhood flashing through his mind. A little girl on a white horse, telling him, Teacher Kurdian, when I learn how to ride, I'm going to enter the equestrian competition. You'll sign me up, won't you? Kurdian stood up excitedly, his golden cape billowing like wings. He practically stumbled towards the gate, his heart crying out, It's her! When Kurdian threw open the gates and saw Hina being protected by Oleglek, her familiar blonde hair and eyes made his own eyes well up instantly. Looking at Hina, his voice trembling slightly, Kurdian was about to say Princess Hina, when she tearfully interrupted him. General Kurdian, please, just call me Hina. Of course, Miss Hina, Kurdian quickly agreed. He respectfully took her hand and placed a light kiss on it. Oleglek, watching from the side, grumbled to himself, What's with humans? They just bite your hand when they meet you. This is Oleglek. We were both thrown into the dragon's cave. I only escaped thanks to him. I see, Kurdian said. It's just that his name sounds foreign. Just then, Hina, who had been on edge for so long, was overwhelmed by the memories of the cave. Her body went limp, and she fainted. Oleglesh caught her just in time. Kurdian panicked. Miss Hina, what's wrong? Oleglek held the unconscious Hina and said to Kurdian, She's exhausted, and her injuries haven't fully healed. Kurdian was filled with regret. I was too hasty. I'll arrange a place for you to rest right away. He hurried off to make the arrangements. Hina slowly came to, looking at Oleglek and saying weakly, Ollie, don't worry. Oleglek looked down at her pale but still beautiful face. In the room, a light breeze rustled the sheer curtains. Hina lay on the bed, her breathing shallow, her forehead beaded with sweat and her face as pale as snow. After a careful examination, the doctor told Kurdian, I've treated her external wounds, but her spiritual energy is extremely weak. Oleglek stood by watching Hina, filled with self-blame. She did this to save me. General, the doctor continued, if you want her to recover quickly, you may need to ask the cleric Carter to use a sacred heal. Kurdian considered this. I'll think about it. You may go for now. Hearing this, Oleglek immediately became agitated, his eyes wide. Why won't you call that cleric to heal her? He demanded. Kurdian wiped the sweat from his brow. The princess went through this ordeal with him, and she seems to trust him. But Carter was sent here from the capital. I have my doubts about his character. Fierce light shot from Oleglek's eyes and his fists clenched tightly. Let him come! If he tries anything funny, I'll snap his neck. Seeing his ferocious expression, a drop of cold sweat ran down Kurdian's temple. He thought to himself, this foreign-looking fellow? Was he fed to the dragon because he's too violent? He said no more, simply waving his hand in resignation. I'll go arrange for a maid to take care of Miss Hina first. Oleglek entered Hina's room. He sat by the bed and gently shook her hand. Hey, Miss Hina Lane, is this your home? Hina let out a weak groan. Seeing this, Oleglek's tone became mocking. You're too scared to even call someone to heal you. What a coward. You'd be better off back in the cave with me. Just then, the image of Kurdian kissing Hina's hand flashed in Oleglek's mind. He clicked his tongue, his eyes full of disdain. I'll have to trouble your wife then, Kurdian said sincerely. Don't worry, General, the other man replied. Kurdian rubbed his forehead. There are almost no women in this border camp. Thankfully, my lieutenant's wife, Aisha, has been helping manage the ranches. She's reliable, so it should be fine. That night on the ranch, the starry sky was magically bright. A girl tugged on Aisha's hand, whining, Auntie, please take me with you. Aisha's face hardened. Don't be ridiculous. The military camp is not a playground. Be good and wait here for me. The girl huffed. It's not every day I get to travel this far. What's so great about a ranch? It's just cows and horses. The city gates slowly opened. "It's Lady Aisha. Let her through," a guard shouted. The carriage stopped, and Aisha lifted the curtain. "We're here." Suddenly, a cheerful voice called out, "Auntie!" Dorothy poked her head out of the carriage. "Auntie, I'm already here, so you have to take me with you. I heard you're here to take care of an injured noble lady. I can help. I promise I won't cause any trouble." Aisha was silent for a moment before sighing in defeat. "Stay by my side at all times. Do your work and keep your mouth shut. You can count on me," Dorothy replied happily. As they entered the hall leading to the room, Olegek was leaning against the doorway. When Dorothy saw him, her eyes widened and her cheeks flushed, her heart pounding. "He's 100 times better looking than any of the animals on the ranch. I'm so glad I came." Aisha looked at the weak girl on the bed and gently wiped her forehead. "Oh, you poor child," she sighed. Then she said to Dorothy, "Help me unfasten her dress. I need to give her a sponge bath first." The moment Dorothy unfastened the dress, her eyes fell on the dragon mark on Hina's shoulder. Her eyes widened in shock. "What is—" she murmured. Dorothy stared at the girl's expensive jewels, her magnificent silk gown, and even a crown that glowed faintly. She was speechless. As Aisha bathed the girl, Dorothy's gaze was once again drawn to the mark on her shoulder. It faintly resembled a dragon, as if the soul of a dragon whispered from within. A thought struck Dorothy. Isn't she the one who was recently sacrificed to the dragon? She couldn't help but ask her aunt, "Auntie, what kind of noble lady needs you to personally take care of her? Could she be the one who betrayed the kingdom?" Aisha shot her a sharp look. "Dorothy, watch your words. Remember what you promised me. Work and keep your mouth shut." Dorothy was stunned by the sudden reprimand and stood frozen. Carrying the basin of water, Aisha said to her, "General Serdian is in charge of all local affairs. He has his reasons. It's not our place to question them." "I understand, Auntie," Dorothy replied obediently. As she reached the door, she saw Olegek. She spoke shyly. "Hello, my name is Dorothy. I'll also be here tomorrow morning to—" Before she could finish, Aisha called out, "Dorothy, keep up, coming!" Dorothy replied quickly. Olegek, with his superhuman hearing, had overheard what Dorothy said. He went to Hina's bedside, a faint smile on his lips, and whispered, "That little girl said you were sacrificed to me for treason." Bitter smile touched Hina's pale face as she responded softly, her voice filled with exhaustion. "Treason. Sacrificed. Saved me even though you were seriously injured yourself." Olegek gently brushed a strand of hair from Hina's face, a peculiar light in his eyes. "You've got guts," he said slowly. "I like that." Hina felt his gentle touch and paused, a ripple of warmth spreading through her. Serdian looked at the unconscious Hina on the bed and said to Aisha, who had just finished caring for her, "Thank you for your trouble." He gazed at Hina's pale face and sighed. "Ah, this child has been through so much." Aisha, her face full of sympathy, agreed. "Isn't that the truth? The one in the capital has absolute power now. Who can possibly stand against him?" Olegek looked at Hina, a complex expression in his eyes. "A usurper. Driven from your own home." He paused, his gaze softening as he looked at her pale face. "Your fate is so much like mine." His eyes sharpened with an unyielding fighting spirit. "But I'd like to see who says he can't be challenged." Outside, Dorothy, not allowed in the room, paced nervously in the hallway. Her mind was racing with questions and fear. What is Auntie thinking? Did she know all along? The person in there is the treasonous princess. She remembered the gruesome fate of those who had defied the regent after the princess was sentenced. They were all killed by the regent. The more she thought, the more terrified she became. She covered her face with her hands, her voice a choked sob. "If they find out we're hiding the princess, will I be implicated too?" she cried out in her mind. "I don't want to die!" Aisha called for Dorothy to bring the medicine. Dorothy agreed, but her heart was pounding with fear. A sudden noise made her jump and scream. She saw a man in a white robe. He asked why she was in such a panic. Dorothy recognized him as the cleric who oversaw military discipline. "If he finds out, maybe I can get out of this." She quickly explained that she was here to care for a badly injured noble lady, then hurried away. The cleric, Carter, watched her go. "An injured noble lady," he mused. He thought of Serdian's loyalty and found the situation very interesting. Carter watched the general leave, his gaze sharpening. He stroked his chin, thinking, if she were just an ordinary noble lady, would he need guards? Assistants? He looked over at Dorothy, who was carrying a tray. As she walked carefully, Dorothy was startled to see Carter and almost dropped everything. Carter held out a hand, a warm golden glow emanating from his palm. "Calm down," he said softly. The light enveloped Dorothy, and her frantic heart miraculously quieted. "Lord Cleric?" she asked, surprised. Carter told Dorothy that healing the sick was his duty, and that she shouldn't be burdened with it. He smiled, reasoning that if the noble lady were truly in critical condition, the general would have called him for a sacred heal instead of having Dorothy brew medicine. "But the lady is very seriously injured," Dorothy blurted out, then nervously added that she didn't know why the general had made such a decision. Carter soothed her, calling her a good child. Then he leaned in closer, his voice low, and said he was worried she might get caught up in something and lose her life for nothing. The scene changes. Hina wakes up and tells Ollie she feels much better. Ollie just grumbles that she's too weak. Hina, concerned about his old wound, wants to take a look. Ollie insists it healed long ago and tells her to worry about herself. Dorothy enters with the medicine and sees them teasing each other. She complains to herself, thinking that the treasonous princess has only come back to cause trouble for everyone, and on top of that, she's being so familiar with a strange man. She's not acting like a princess at all. I would never be like that. Carter appears, telling Dorothy she shouldn't get involved in these matters. He offers to help her, but in return he needs a small favor. He assures her she won't be harmed. After hesitating, Dorothy says she's just here to give the lady her medicine. In the room, Ollie directly asks Dorothy for the medicine. Dorothy is both surprised and suspicious. Ollie takes the bowl and asks, "Is there a problem, Dorothy?" Dorothy quickly shakes her head. "No." Ollie sniffed the bowl and frowned. "Tsk, what a weird smell." Hina, though wary, thought that since it was arranged by General Turdian, it should be fine. She let Ollie feed her the medicine. Dorothy stood by, her palms sweating. She secretly activated a scrying spell, and a golden eye symbol appeared on her palm. As the rune glowed, the air around it seemed to shimmer with tiny golden specks of magical energy. The moment Hina drank the medicine, the air seemed to freeze, and a strange wave of magic spread out. The golden eye symbol on Carter's forehead lit up. A flash of excitement and certainty crossed his face. "It really is her," he whispered. He raised his hand and summoned a blue-feathered bird. "Go," he commanded. "Go and tell the regent." The bird, as if understanding, chirped once, its red eyes flashing. It beat its wings and shot out the window, quickly disappearing into the sky. Hina awoke to the general's joyful voice. "Thank heavens you're awake!" Hina assured him she was fine. Ollie, watching from the side, clicked his tongue in disdain. She asked about the situation in the capital, and learned that the high priest Valensar was dead. She had been offered as a sacrifice, and those loyal to the royal family had been either killed or suppressed. The kingdom was now firmly in the regent's control. The scene shifts to the capital. News arrives that a delegation from the northern dwarven clan has reached the port. In the regent's palace, Tina is anxious, and Ansel is worried. The regent orders officials to welcome them and prepare a banquet for that evening. Some whisper that the dwarves, who usually keep to their mountain valleys, are likely coming to demand answers, relying on their old friendship with the late king. The regent arrogantly declares that with a princess in hand, he'd like to see what the dwarves dare to ask. Back in the camp, General Serdian tells Hina the latest news is that Princess Tina is set to be crowned, and later, at her official coronation ceremony, there will also be... He trailed off. "What?" Hina asked, curious. After a moment's silence, Serdian told her there would be a wedding between Princess Tina and Ansel. A complex emotion flickered in Hina's eyes. She asked the general to leave her so she could be alone for a while. Ollie, who had overheard the name Ansel, found it familiar. He suddenly remembered Hina's dream, and grumbled about what a treacherous guy Ansel was, daring to appear in his sacrifice's dreams. Later, a coughing Ollie appears and asks what the human ceremony for sacrificing someone to a dragon is like. Hina explains that they offer a beautiful young woman as a sacrificial bride to the dragon in exchange for protection. Ollie's face lights up with delight. He declares that this means he and Hina are already married and complains that the humans didn't even ask for his opinion. Just then, a bird with a peculiar aura flies past the palace. The regent, who was gazing into the distance, notices a messenger bird with a blue-green sheen and red eyes break through the air and land on his arm. Looking at the letter tied to its leg, the regent murmurs, "Highland Camp," from Carter. When he reads the contents, his purple eyes narrow. Several bolts of blue-purple lightning flash across the sky above the palace. The regent clutches the letter, his eyes filled with shock and venom. "You're still not dead," he grits out. "This time you won't escape." That night, outside the Highland camp, raven-like birds with red eyes swarmed like a black tide in the shadows. A group in black cloaks on horses with glowing red eyes followed their leader's pointed finger. A warm light glowed from a small hut in the camp. Inside, Dorothy held a tray, her nervous face illuminated by an oil lamp. "Is tonight really the night?" she muttered. Holding the warm lamp, Dorothy hurried to find Ollie, her voice trembling. General Serdian needs to see you on an urgent matter. It concerns the lady's safety. You should go quickly. Ollie's eyes narrowed. After a moment's thought, he strode off. Inside, the lamplight cast shadows on the bed curtains. Dorothy entered, holding the lamp. Princess Hina, she said, don't blame me. You're the sinner who came back and put us all in danger. Just then, a faint blue phantom appeared. Carter reached out a hand, a magical energy flowing from it. Don't be afraid, he soothed. I'm helping you clear your name and earn a reward. The regent will make you a noble. You can have whatever you want. Dorothy's eyes lit up with greed. She was convinced she had done nothing wrong and had, in fact, done a great service. Dorothy placed a glowing crown on her head and stared at her reflection in the mirror, whispering, "The Honorable Lady Dorothy, what is it that you desire?" Ollie approached, a golden light seeming to shimmer around him. He took her hand. Were you the one who called for help when you saw the danger? Dorothy blushed, her mind fixated on one thought. I want him. As soon as she thought it, her body began to float, her skirt blooming like a flower. Smiling, she flew out the window. In the darkness, a black-robed figure stood in the shadows, looking at the lit window. This way, he said quietly. A group of black-robed figures with glowing red eyes and gleaming daggers stared at the window. That's the target's room, one said with certainty. Suddenly, a voice cut through the silence. Wait, something's not right. Ollie stroked his chin, thinking contemptuously that Hina's safety had nothing to do with that general. As long as he was around, she was perfectly safe. This was all a waste of time. What a nuisance, he grumbled, turning to leave. But he froze. Two knights lay on the ground, surrounded by a strange purple mist, as if they had been struck by an evil spell. Not good! His heart sank as he heard a strange noise from inside the room. Ollie kicked the door open. He burst in to see a blonde figure on the floor, a pool of blood spreading from her, a bloody dagger lying nearby. His heart stopped. A black-robed man held the bloody dagger, his red eyes glowing in the shadows. He looked down at the person on the floor. It's not her, he said coldly. On the floor, Dorothy clutched her bleeding neck, tears mixing with blood. The man's gaze snapped to the bed, where Hina was lying peacefully. Before he could move, Ollie lunged at him like a panther. You're dead, he roared. The two were instantly locked in combat, a blur of flashing blades and fists. Hina woke with a start, her eyes reflecting the cold glint of a dagger coming straight for her. She screamed. At the last second, Ollie appeared like a phantom and seized the attacker's throat. Hina, seeing it was Ollie, was still in shock. Then she saw more black-robed figures flooding into the room, the air thick with danger. She instantly understood they were here for her. They were assassins. I can't just sit here and die. The thought had barely formed when she grabbed a nearby candlestick. Seeing another attacker charge at Ollie, she yelled, Ollie, look out! Just worry about yourself! He shouted back without turning. The attackers, now desperate, roared, Get him! And swarmed forward. Ollie's hands were like iron clamps. He grabbed one by the throat, and with a sudden burst of strength, slammed him into another. But in the chaos, a gleaming dagger lunged toward Hina. She screamed, trying to block it with the candlestick. With a loud clang, the two collided, sending sparks flying. He stared at the approaching assassin, his heart pounding like a drum. Ollie held the man in a chokehold. You dare come here to die? He snarled. Hina stood panting, still holding the candlestick. It fell to the floor with a clatter. Are you okay? Ollie asked quickly. Hina shook her head, still shaken. I'm fine. You saved me again, Ollie. She saw his injured hand. Your hand! Let me heal it! A soft golden light began to glow in her palm. Ollie frowned. Humph, it's just a scratch. Don't waste your energy. He pulled her to her feet. All right, this place isn't safe at all. Let's get out of here. Hina held him back, her eyes filled with conflict. Wait, I can't just leave like this. I was too naive. All I wanted was to go home and clear my name, but I never thought it would get people hurt. She looked at the maid's body on the floor, her voice trembling. This maid is already dead because of me. I can't let General Curtian and the others at the camp be slaughtered because of me too. Ollie stared at her. So what are you going to do? He asked seriously. Hina was silent for a moment, then a look of determination crossed her face. I have to die. Ollie's eyes widened in shock. Hina changed into the maid's green dress and went to the bed. Ollie put her on the bed. Hina placed the crown on Dorothy's head and whispered, I'm sorry. Then she looked at Ollie. Ollie, we have to burn this place down. But if I go out looking for a torch dressed as a maid? Ollie flicked a spark from his fingertip, lit an oil lamp and handed it to her. Hina thought for a moment. Ollie, let's split up. Ollie considered it. The guards outside had been taken down, which meant there was an insider. Soon the room was engulfed in flames, the firelight creating a surreal scene. Hina, in the green maid's dress and a fringed hood, stood in the doorway, her expression firm in the flickering light. Under the night sky, Ollie and Hina rode hard. The white horse suddenly neighed and stopped. Ollie pulled on the reins and looked into the distance. We've gone far enough, they can't catch us. Hina looked at the mountains silhouetted against the setting sun, her eyes blank. Where to next? Ollie asked. Hina was silent for a long time. Then a tear rolled down her cheek. I don't know. I have nothing left. I have nowhere to go. Ollie gently wiped away her tear, thinking to himself, what do you mean you have nothing? You still have me. In a dark room, an attendant reported to the general that the bodies found at the scene were all male and armed. The general walked to the bed where a female body lay with a deep gash in her neck. His face was a mask of shock and confusion. Nearby, Aisha suddenly thought of Dorothy's safety. Her face filled with sorrow. But I bathed the princess, she murmured. The crown was definitely taken off. Just then, Carter appeared at the door. In the royal palace, a bluebird chirped, delivering its message. A sinister glint appeared in the regent's eyes, and a strange smile twisted his lips. Very good. Now I can proceed with my plan. In the forest, Ollie said to Hina, let's rest here. Hina rubbed her forehead, her eyes dim. I just feel like the road home is closed to me. Ollie snorted, crossing his arms. If one road is closed, just take another. Hina thought for a moment. The only people I can turn to now are the dwarves of Iron Ridge Mountain, right? But she looked at the map and frowned. To get there, the kingdom to the north, Rohan, is friendly with the regent, so we could easily be discovered. If we go south around the Gummany burial grounds, there are a lot of fierce trolls. It would be hard for the two of us to get through. She sighed, her face full of worry. Oleg was silent, his sharp eyes scanning their surroundings. Suddenly his eyes lit up. There's still another way to go, isn't there? Hina looked and gasped. That's the poison mist swamp. That's even more impossible. It's an ancient, corrupted swamp filled with poisonous fog. No one can survive in there, let alone pass through it. Hearing poison mist, Oleg seemed to have an idea. Before Hina could react, he lifted her onto the horse. Hey, what are you doing? She cried, startled. Oleg swung himself onto the horse, pulled the reins tight, and said, We're going through the swamp. Facing the wind, he said confidently, It's just poison mist. I have a way to deal with it. The white horse neighed and galloped toward the swamp, which was shrouded in an eerie purple fog. Ahead, the poison mist swamp lay like a lurking monster, purple fog churning and withered trees twisted like gnarled claws. When the white horse reached the edge, it neighed sharply and refused to go any further. Oleg snapped the reins, but the horse resisted. Ollie, stop! Even if we're brave enough to go in, the horse won't, Hina shouted. Humans are so delicate. How are you supposed to walk through this whole swamp? He grumbled. He stopped the horse. Before we go in, you should eat something to keep your strength up. Then he added, I'm going to take this guy to get some water. The horse let out a terrified, almost murderous screech. Hina looked at the fog-filled swamp, her heart heavy with worry. She remembered Teacher Velensar's words. The deeper you go into the poison mist swamp, the stronger the toxic barrier becomes. No one has ever come out alive. Hina sat on the grass looking at her palm. I know a purification spell, but it won't last long enough to get us all the way through the swamp, she whispered, her eyes full of concern. Just then, Ollie ran over excitedly. Hina, good news. Hina looked confused. This guy drank some water and now he's willing to go in with us, Ollie said with a grin. At Ollie's command, the white horse stepped into the poison mist swamp. Purple fog swirled around them, and giant scorpions with coiled poisonous tails clung to the dead branches. They carefully entered the outer edges of the swamp. Hina sniffed the air. The mist seems thinner out here. It shouldn't harm us for now. Just as she finished speaking, Ollie's eyes sharpened with alarm. From between the vines, several spiky, strange-looking creatures were slithering toward them. Ollie raised an eyebrow, his voice menacing. Be careful, or I might just catch and eat you, though I have no idea if you'd taste good. He slapped the horse's flank and it shot forward. The strange creatures continued to rustle in the shadows. As dusk fell, the purple mist grew thicker. Hina held out her hand, and a soft green light glowed from her fingertips. As she cast a purification barrier, she felt the surrounding mist and frowned. It's strange. I don't feel like my body is being affected much. It's just that my back feels really hot. Hearing this, Ollie's eyes shot open in surprise. Hina suddenly grabbed Ollie's hand, her eyes shining. Right, Ollie, you said you had a way to deal with the poison mist, didn't you? Did you know it wasn't that harmful? Or have you been in here before? Teach me, she pleaded, shaking his arm. Ollie looked at Hina, thinking, we dragons are immune to this so-called poison mist. Since you have my mark, you're naturally immune too. But how do I explain that? He touched his chin, trying to find the right words. Well, it's like this. Just then, a strange hissing sound came from all around them. They looked up to see a giant, spiky insect with glowing green eyes burst out of the purple mist, green slime dripping from its mouth. Oli reacted instantly, pulling Hina behind him. Get in the cave, he yelled. The giant insect lunged at them. Get in the cave, Ollie shouted again. He braced his hands against the creature's gleaming fangs. With a loud crack, the fangs fractured. Green slime dripped from its mouth, and the force of the impact sent Ollie staggering back with a grunt. From inside the cave, Hina called out anxiously, Ollie, I'll heal you. I don't need your healing yet. He grunted stubbornly. A fierce look crossed his face, and a corner of his mouth lifted. They just came here to die. With that, Ollie moved like lightning, weaving between the insects. He grabbed one by its fangs and, with a massive effort, slammed it into the ground. He straddled the creature, pinning it down. Don't bother struggling, he said coldly. Then he snapped off its fang. Hey, let me borrow this. Inside the cave, Hina watched the fight, her hand outstretched. Don't get hurt, she whispered. After finishing off one insect, Ollie's gaze fell on another. Suddenly, with a loud thud, the rocks above the cave entrance loosened, and another insect burst through, lunging toward Hina and the white horse, green slime dripping from its mouth. Hina's eyes widened in terror. Ollie! She screamed. Hearing her cry, Ollie's heart lurched. He looked toward the sound, just as a blinding light shot from the cave entrance. Hina! He yelled frantically. Ollie's bone blade, trailing a white vortex, precisely pierced the insect's head, splattering green slime everywhere. He held his nose in disgust. Smells awful. Doesn't look like it would taste good either. With the battle over, Ollie walked over to Hina and held out his hand. It's okay, can you get up? He looked at her, full of self-reproach. I was careless. This little bug, are you hurt? Hina blushed and quickly shook her head. I'm fine. She looked up, her eyes shining with excitement. But Ollie, you're so amazing. You're the bravest warrior I've ever seen. Ollie paused for a second, then muttered with a hint of pride. You haven't even seen what I can really do. In the cave, Ollie struck 2 stones together to create a spark, lighting a small pile of dry moss. Hina watched the dancing flame, surprised. Did General Serdian teach you how to make a fire in the wild? I thought you didn't like him very much. Ollie pouted. I don't. Not after he bit your hand when we first met. Mushrooms sizzled over the fire. Ollie handed a skewer to Hina. Here, just roast them and they're ready to eat. Hina hesitated, looking at the strange-looking mushrooms. She remembered Teacher Valensar's warnings, and her hand trembled slightly. But the tempting aroma, and the sight of Ollie eating with such gusto, made her take a bite. The mushroom was smooth and had a unique earthy flavor. Just as she was about to say how delicious it was, the world started spinning. Ollie in the cave distorted before her eyes. The next second, she collapsed to the ground. Ollie dropped his skewer in a panic and held the unconscious Hina, yelling, Hina Lane, wake up! He looked at her unresponsive face, completely confused. She has my mark. The poison mist couldn't even affect her. How could this happen? Suddenly, he saw the strange mushrooms on the ground. A thought struck him. Could it be? He angrily picked up the remaining mushrooms and held them out to the white horse. You eat one too. The horse looked baffled, but, under Ollie's menacing gaze, reluctantly took a bite and neighed miserably. But it just seemed to think the mushroom was tasty and dodged his next attempt. Ollie had no time for the horse. He looked back at Hina. Can you spit it out? He asked tentatively. Hina's throat made a gurgling sound, as if she were trying. How is it? Ollie asked nervously. Hina managed to grunt. Ollie's eyes widened with a mix of hope and anxiety. Ollie was overjoyed to see Hina awake. Hina's eyes were hazy. She reached out a hand, fumbling, and whispered, Who are you? Ollie was confused, but then Hina's expression suddenly changed. She wrapped her arms around him and said in a coquettish tone, Don't run so fast. Wait for me, Ansel. Ollie's pupils constricted in shock. Hina, however, seemed to be lost in a hallucination. She laughed and reached out her hands. Ha ha, Ansel, I caught you. In her vision, she and Ansel were playing in a field of pink and white roses, their laughter like the tinkling of wind chimes. Hina, Ansel said with a smile, when you become queen, we'll get married. Hina blushed and nodded enthusiastically. Yes! She cupped his face, her eyes full of hope. Ansel, we'll be together forever, right? But Ansel was silent. The light in Hina's eyes dimmed. Ansel, right? She asked anxiously. In her hallucination, Hina became emotional, grabbing Ollie's collar, her voice full of hurt and accusation. Ansel, say something. Why aren't you saying anything? Are you afraid to promise me? Or did you know all along that I could never be queen? Are you scared? You coward. You're afraid to be with me. Oli watched Heine, lost in her dream and crying, and felt a tightness in his chest. He took a deep breath, forcing down a wave of irritation, and took her hand. His voice was firm. That's enough, Miss Heine Lane. I think you've forgotten something. You are my sacrificial bride. We've already had our wedding. You belong to me. And with that, he leaned down and kissed her lips. Hina froze, tears still clinging to her eyelashes like dewdrops. Hina snapped out of her daze and saw that it was Ollie. Her eyes widened in shock. Before she could speak, Ollie's lips were on hers again. She struggled, but his strength was overwhelming. It was as if she were under a spell. Her resistance was futile. Ollie pressed her down onto a bed of flower petals, her long hair cascading around her. My little bride, he whispered in her ear, his breath warm and intoxicating. Don't move. Hina could only let out small whimpers, feeling as if she were trapped in a vortex of hallucination and reality, a magical and inescapable whirlwind. As Ollie's tongue touched the skin of her neck, the blood-red dragon mark there suddenly grew hot, as if it were alive. In an instant, strange crystalline patterns appeared on Ollie's face, and his whole body burned. The feeling was more intense than anything he had ever felt in his human form. He looked at Hina beneath him, who was also trembling and moaning. It's so hot. The thought that she had been poisoned flashed through his mind, but he immediately dismissed it. A deep, primal longing swept over him. The surrounding flower petals seemed to swirl and glow in response to his intense emotions. A single thought grew louder and clearer in his mind. I want her. Ollie's hands, burning with heat, explored Hina's body. Hina suddenly came to her senses, her eyes wide with alarm. Ollie Gleck, don't, she cried out, biting back the pain. They were both breathing heavily, and the pink flower petals around them seemed to tremble in the tense atmosphere. After a moment, Ollie finally calmed down. He looked at Hina beneath him. Just as she was about to say something, he gently brushed his finger across her lips, his voice a mix of teasing and tenderness. My dear Miss Heine, you bit me quite hard. Hina let out a muffled gasp. Then, Ollie asked seriously, do you feel better now? No poison works on a dragon. Maybe my blood can even act as an antidote. Hina lay on the ground, limp. I don't feel as bad, she said weakly, but my arms and legs still have no strength. She unconsciously rubbed her lips, thinking regretfully, I really shouldn't have eaten those wild mushrooms. Her mind was a mess. I think I saw Ansel just now. Then she suddenly remembered yelling, Are you afraid to be with me? In her hallucination. Her face turned bright red, and she covered it with her hands, screaming internally, How could I have asked him that? It's all because Ansel and I were childhood friends, she thought, fuming. I used to think he would be my husband, but now… She stole a glance at Ollie, her thoughts in a jumble. But Ollie and I… Ollie had somehow appeared right in front of her. Hina, why are you looking at me? He asked mischievously. Do you want to kiss again? Hina, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, shook her head violently. No! She cried, her voice on the verge of tears. I don't know anything, she muttered. Ollie asked about her condition, and after she confirmed she was okay, they continued on their way. Hina couldn't help but look at Ollie. When he caught her, she felt a bit embarrassed. She reached out her hand, and a faint light from her fingertips magically healed his wound. Ollie looked at her, his expression complicated. Ollie suddenly teased Hina, asking if she wanted to kiss again, or maybe let him bite her a couple of times. Hina, embarrassed and annoyed, told him to shut up. Ollie just laughed. Annoyed and helpless, she told him to stop laughing. As they walked, Hina sensed something was wrong. The air was thick with a growing metallic scent, and it was eerily quiet, except for their own sounds. Just then, a pair of green-shaped eyes lit up in the darkness, accompanied by a low growl as if some mysterious and dangerous creature was watching them. A sense of foreboding fell over them. The next second, several monsters covered in dark red vines, their eyes glowing an eerie green, appeared. They opened their massive, tooth-filled mouths, and a foul-smelling green saliva dripped out as they let out a terrifying growl. We should get out of here, Ollie yelled. They quickly mounted the horse. Yeah! Ollie shouted, and the white horse shot forward like an arrow. The monsters roared and gave chase. Ollie, over there, they're coming after us! Hina yelled, pointing. Just then, a monster swooped down from the air, its claws whistling through the wind, about to grab them. But Hina's expression hardened, and a warm golden light burst from her palm. The light shot toward the monster like a blade. It shrieked in pain, and black smoke rose from where the light had struck it, slowing it down. More vine-covered monsters emerged from the surroundings. Ollie looked at them and frowned. If it were just one or two, I could handle them easily. But now… Ollie, what do we do? Hina asked nervously. Don't worry, he soothed her. I won't let you get hurt. Then he told her to switch places with him and take the reins. Hina was surprised, but Ollie had already swiftly switched positions, his eyes sharp as daggers. Run, he commanded the horse. The white horse suddenly bolted, and Hina cried out its name. Oli was surrounded by the monsters. Hina yelled his name anxiously. Oli's eyes were fierce, and a blood-red energy surged around him. Die, he roared. Though he couldn't transform back into his true form, he still challenged the monsters to come at him. In the fight, Ollie's claws sank into a monster's body, sending green leaves flying. As he fought fiercely, a monster's claws raked across his arm, leaving a wound tinged with green. He licked the wound, his eyes glinting with even more killing intent. Hina galloped back on the white horse, its golden mane flying in the wind. She rushed to Ollie's side, calling his name firmly. A soft, golden light emanated from her palm as she gently placed it on his injured shoulder. The pain from the wound seemed to be soothed by a warm current, and the skin healed at a visible rate. Ollie looked at Hina, a flash of surprise in his eyes, which then turned to determination. My princess, get ready. We fight together. Hina's eyes shone as she nodded, a faint magical aura beginning to glow around her as she prepared for the battle to come. A giant monster charged at them with terrifying force. Ollie's eyes were filled with resolve. Now! He yelled at Hina. A soft magical aura instantly flared around Hina. She thrust her hands forward, and a wall of scorching fire erupted, colliding with the monster and creating a blinding flash of light. The monster shrieked in pain. Ollie pressed the advantage, unleashing several more streams of fire that engulfed the group of monsters in a sea of flames. Then, he pulled Hina onto the white horse, and they galloped away into the distance, leaving behind the roaring flames and the shrieks of the monsters. The purple poison mist grew thicker, coiling like a living thing and seeping into their lungs. Hina's breathing became more ragged, a burning weight pressing on her chest, each breath a sharp pain. Ollie touched her forehead, his brow furrowing at the heat. Before he could speak, a deafening roar from a monster behind them seemed to tear through the air. Ollie cursed and dug his heels into the horse's sides. He gave Hina some of his blood, and she slowly came out of her daze, a metallic taste in her mouth. The white horse was also panting, on the verge of collapse. Before they could catch their breath, the monsters were upon them again, their vine-covered bodies twisted and their green eyes glowing with madness. Ollie held Hina tightly. Hang in there, he yelled, though he himself was nearing the point of exhaustion. As they reached the center of the poison mist swamp, the sight before them was surreally magical. Hina covered her mouth, fighting back a wave of nausea. She looked at the path leading to the island in the middle of the lake and whispered to Ollie, asking if they should check it out. Before Ollie could answer, the white horse let out a pained whinny and collapsed. Hina screamed, her heart filled with fear and panic as she looked at the dying horse. Ollie calmed the frightened Hina and took her hand, leading her down the path to the island. Purple mist swirled around them, and the white bones on the ground cast grotesque shadows. Suddenly, Ollie stopped. He could clearly sense an ancient and powerful energy emanating from the crescent-shaped island. The dark vines suddenly began to move, as if they were alive, slowly reaching for them. Ollie calmed Hina and led her toward the strange, ancient tree on the island. In the purple mist, the tree's black vines twisted like living things, and the bone spikes embedded in it glinted coldly. Ollie could feel the ancient power coming from the tree, but it seemed to be fading. Hina suddenly moved closer to the tree. I can hear it, she said. It's crying in pain. Just as Ollie was about to warn her of the danger, she pointed at the vines wrapped around the tree, her eyes wide with shock. She said she had to pull the thorns from the tree. Ollie was hesitant. The whole place felt incredibly strange. Hina squeezed his hand, her eyes shining. She told him the legend of the poison mist swamp, how no one had ever passed through it alive. Yet here they were, in the very center, and they could hear the ancient tree's cries. Inspired by her courage, Ollie squeezed her cheek and decided to help. Ollie told Hina to stand back. He gathered his strength and charged at the tree like a panther. He leaped into the air, grabbed one of the bone spikes piercing the tree's trunk, and pulled with all his might, his muscles straining. With a grunt, he yanked the spike out. A strange green slime immediately spurted from the wound, its foul smell filling the air. It sizzled as if it could corrode anything. Hina, watching in horror, quickly warned Ollie that the slime was poisonous. A few drops splashed onto his face and his skin immediately began to burn. Ollie summoned a purification shield. The green slime hit it and sizzled, but couldn't break through. Hina rushed over, her eyes full of worry, and asked if he was okay. Just as he was about to say he was fine, she moved even closer. Exasperated, he told her to stand back. After making sure Hina was safe, Ollie went back to pulling out the spikes. The swamp began to bubble, and the purple mist grew even thicker. Even the white horse was trembling with fear, certain it was about to die. Finally, Ollie had pulled out several more spikes. Hina hurried over to check on him. "I'm fine," he said, panting. "Just one more left." Hina looked at the ancient tree and was surprised to see that its cries of pain had lessened. It even seemed to be coming back to life. They looked at each other, both thinking they had to pull out the last spike to see what miracle would happen. The ancient tree fully awakened, letting out a deafening roar that shook the very ground. Ollie quickly shielded Hina, but she was staring in wonder as the tree's cries stopped, and a small pink flower bloomed on its withered branches. Just then the tree's eyes glowed green, and it spoke in a low voice. Hina was baffled, wondering if she was still hallucinating from the poison mushrooms. She was talking to a tree. Ollie told the tree to speak human. Hina, curious if the tree could understand her, asked about the mist. The tree's ancient voice explained that it had been so long since it had encountered humans, that it was having trouble remembering their language. Ollie looked confused, but then the tree spoke in clear human language, telling Ollie he was a liar and that it knew he wasn't human. Hina was thrilled. "You can speak our language!" she exclaimed, asking if it was a tree or something else. The tree man, who called himself Sintiphon, said he was a Trent, but it had been so long he couldn't remember much. Suddenly his green eyes flashed. "Oh no, it's over!" he cried out. The tree suddenly wrapped its roots around Ollie and Hina, lifting them high into the air. Hina was terrified. Ollie frantically told the tree to let them go and not to hurt Hina. The tree told them to be patient, and then blew a great gust of wind. As the mist cleared, several giant, spiky, tooth-filled tentacles rose from the lake, writhing in the purple fog, looking as if they would drag everything down into the depths. Hina and Ollie screamed at the sight of the giant, spiky, tooth-filled tentacles. The tree confirmed it was an old friend, but couldn't recall its evil rival's name. "Forget the name! Think of a plan!" Ollie yelled. The tentacles slapped the lake, and the water, which was actually poison, began to rise, threatening to flood the small island. The tree's roots were already being corroded by the toxic liquid. Hina wanted to heal the tree, but it told her not to bother, that pulling out the spikes had already freed it. Then the tree began to shed its old bark, revealing new life beneath. "My old friend," it called out to the tentacles, preparing to fight. The tentacles writhed in the purple water, and a great battle was about to begin. Hina clung to Ollie, her voice trembling with fear. He held her and comforted her. Just then, a giant spiky tentacle shot toward them. "Look out!" the tree warned. In that critical moment, the tree's branches morphed into sharp blades and sliced at the tentacle. The tentacle's poison corroded the tree's hand. Hina anxiously offered to heal it, but the tree brushed it off, complaining about how disgusting the old monster was. Hina whispered to Ollie that she felt the old Trent was struggling and worried if it could defeat the monster. Ollie noted that they couldn't see the monster's head and thought the Trent might have a plan. Hearing this, the Trent praised Ollie's sharp eyes and revealed that in ancient times, it had pinned the old monster's head under the island with its roots, but neither could kill the other. It was surprised that after all this time, the Trent then smugly asked Ollie if it was right to assume he was a little dragon man, and if he was in awe of it. Ollie told it to stop talking and focus on the fight. Hina wondered what a little dragon man was. Just then, the tentacles attacked again. The Trent lamented that it was getting old and rarely had anyone to talk to, but the fight had to continue. It clashed with the tentacles once more. The tentacles splashed the purple lake water, which carried a toxic mist, toward Ollie, Hina, and the tree. Ollie quickly raised a dark magic shield. "Be careful! The water is poisonous!" he yelled. But some of the toxic water seeped through. When it touched Hina, she cried out in pain, her face paling. Ollie, angry and frustrated, realized his own magic seemed to be harming her. He glared at the tentacles. "If I could fly, I'd burn you to a crisp with one breath." "One breath won't kill this old monster," the tree chimed in. Ollie's temper flared. "You old geezer, you're reading my mind!" he yelled. The tree, worried it was too dangerous outside, wanted Hina to rest inside its trunk. It gently wrapped a root around her, and she cried out in alarm. The tree opened a hollow in its trunk, but just as Ollie was about to follow, it closed, and he bumped his head with a yelp. The tree told Ollie to stay and help. Though annoyed, Ollie knew it was the best way to protect Hina, who had saved the tree. He suppressed his anger and gathered his power. A ball of energy with red lightning forming in his palm, his eyes sharp. The Trent teased that dragons were hot-tempered and wondered who the current Black Dragon King was, even joking that the Black Dragon clan was doomed. Ollie, having had enough, roared and attacked the tentacles, his every move crackling with magical energy. After repelling the attack, Oli could sense Hina's mark and knew she was safe. Inside the tree, Hina was surprised to find herself inside a glowing seed, surrounded by twinkling lights. Oli was shocked by the tree's request. It wanted him to burn it down. The tree explained that it didn't have long to live and that this corrupted land needed to be purified. As the last demigod Trant, it was determined to take the old poison monster with it. Oli, needing all the power he could get, agreed. Inside the tree, Hina was suddenly thrown about by a violent shaking. What's happening? She wondered, her head aching. She noticed the seed next to her had changed color and was now intensely hot. When she touched it, she could feel the old Trant's immense pain and was filled with pity, but she didn't know how to help. Outside, Oli was receiving the tree's energy. Golden energy vines wrapped around him, glowing with a magical light, as if binding their lives together. The tree told Oli that its power would allow him to temporarily regain his true form, and that he would know what to do next. When the energy transfer was complete, Oli's eyes burned with a golden fire. Giant, dark purple dragon wings unfurled from his back, creating a powerful gust of wind that withered the surrounding vines. With a manic grin, he thought about fulfilling the tree's wish, and transforming into a giant dragon soared into the sky. With a mighty roar, Oli in his dragon form was ensnared by the spiky red tentacles. He roared and struggled, his sharp claws tearing at the tentacles. Just then, the tree called out weakly that it couldn't hold the poison monster back any longer. The horrifying creature, covered in purple filth, burst from the ground looking even more monstrous. The tree's glowing green eyes were fixed on Oli. Oli quickly reminded his ally not to forget to protect Hina. A more dangerous and magical battle was about to begin. Oli, as a dragon, unleashed a torrent of golden dragon's breath, which poured down like a waterfall, burning the spiky red tentacles of the poison monster. Unable to escape, the creature shrieked in agony as it was consumed by the flames, turning to ash with a final defiant roar. The tree, its energy depleted, was also fading fast. A warm orange flame enveloped it, but it seemed peaceful, as if to say it was all over. Inside the trunk, Hina felt the tree's life force slipping away and tried to use her soothing magic, her hands glowing with a soft golden light. But a bolt of green energy struck her and she cried out. When she opened her eyes again, she was in a lush, unfamiliar forest. As she looked around, a gentle voice spoke. She looked up to see the old Trant, covered in vibrant green leaves full of life. It smiled and welcomed her to the land of the demigod Trance, telling her that from now on, this land was hers. Hina stared, wide-eyed and completely bewildered. The air was filled with glowing specks of light, like a dream. She was shocked to realize this was the former Poison Mist Swamp. The old Trent, hearing that its home had become known as the Poison Mist Swamp, was so angry that flowers bloomed all over its body and its leaves trembled. The old Trent then sadly recounted the story of long ago, how it and its kin had failed to completely destroy the poison insects that had invaded their forest. In the end, it and the old poison monster had fought until they were both on their last breath. Thanks to Hina, the monster was finally gone. He thanked the kind-hearted girl, saying it was the last bit of strength she gave him that kept the monster from escaping. Just as the old Trent finished speaking, its green leaves began to fall like butterflies, and the light in its glowing green eyes faded. Hina reached out to touch it, but was horrified to feel no life force at all. Then, in a magical and tragic scene, the old Trant's body disintegrated, turning into a swirl of glowing wood chips and leaves that slowly dissipated into the air. Hina reached out to catch them, but they slipped through her fingers. Hina! Oli cried out anxiously, pulling her into a tight hug. Sobbing, Hina told him that the poison insect was dead, but the old Trant had also returned to the earth. Just then, something strange happened. A crown woven from glowing red plants had appeared on Hina's head, radiating a soft, life-giving energy. You have a new crown, Oli said, pointing in surprise. Hina touched it and could feel the old Trant's presence, as if it were still with her in another magical form. Hina touched the glowing crown from the old Trant, her heart full of memories. She was telling Oli how the Trant had protected this land with its last breath, and how she didn't know if she could rebuild it. When the ground suddenly began to shake violently, a massive pillar of blue glowing energy shot into the sky and rocks rained down. Oli yelled, grabbing Hina and sprinting across the crumbling ground. Boulders crashed around them. Panting, he carried her to the edge of a cliff and leaped to the other side. Just as they landed, the sky opened up in a downpour. The rain soaked Oli's hair, but he held Hina steady. She was surprised to find that the rain was actually pure spring water, carrying the fresh scent of plants. Oli looked at Hina, his eyes burning with intensity. In the rain, he kissed her. In the former poison mist swamp, several pillars of blue water shot into the sky, their purifying power clearing away the last of the poison mist. This is great, Oli, Hina shouted happily. Oli gave her a fond look and patted her head, saying he would find a place to dry her clothes. The white horse, watching them, felt like a third wheel and looked on miserably. They found a clearing and started a campfire. Oli told Hina to take off her clothes to dry them. She blushed, but then Oli took off his own shirt, revealing his muscular chest. By the fire, something glowing fell from Oli's clothes. Hina picked it up curiously. It was a seed-like object with an ancient-looking, wrinkled surface, glowing with a faint blue light in the firelight, as if it held a galaxy within. She recognized it as the seed that had protected her. She was telling Oli about it, when she noticed him staring at it with affection, mentioning that he had borrowed a gem from the dragon clan. An idea struck Hina. She borrowed the reins from the white horse, tore off a leather strip, and skillfully strung the seed into a pendant. When she held it up to Oli's chest, the seed glowed even brighter as it touched his skin. Hina placed the gemstone seed pendant around Oli's neck. She smiled and said she would get him a shinier necklace later, mentioning the forest crown the old treant had given her. She told him the seed was her gift to him, a sincere blessing. As soon as she finished speaking, a look of surprise crossed Oli's face. The next moment, he kissed her. The surrounding pink flowers, as if moved by their affection, began to float in the air, creating a dreamlike canopy. Even the firelight seemed to soften. Hina, blushing, whispered Oli's name. Oli's eyes were intense, and his fingertips were damp with sweat. When he touched her, it felt like a tiny electric current passed between them. Hina looked at her clothes, unsure what to do. Oli, smiling, teased her about how she was going to dry her clothes without taking them off. As he spoke, it was as if his hands had a magical power, and the hem of Hina's dress began to lift on its own. By the fire, their clothes swayed gently on a wooden rack. As Oli and Hina drew closer, a pink glow around them intensified, as if an invisible magic were flowing. Hina whispered Oli's name, asking him to wait. But the next moment, as if influenced by a mysterious force, a sound like a dragon's roar came from Oli's throat, and a faint, golden, dragon-shaped aura surrounded him. Hina's forest crown suddenly came to life, and its branches, adorned with small pink flowers, began to whip Oli. He winced in pain. Hina was both surprised and amused to see her crown in action, her cheeks flushing at the strange scene. The branches continued to wriggle on Oli's body, as if declaring their duty to protect their master. Hina thought the crown was fascinating. Oli, however, was furious. He breathed a small flame at it, trying to scorch it back to its original form. Then he placed the crown back on Hina's head. Hina asked why the crown had whipped him. Oli grumbled that Trent things were just weird. Then he looked at her fondly and said she shouldn't wear the crown anymore. He would get her a big, sparkly gemstone crown instead. Hina blushed and happily agreed. Oli leaned down and placed a soft kiss on her forehead. Oli held Hina, insisting, I wasn't bullying her. But his protective stance said otherwise. It turned out that as the tree monster was dying, it had produced a strange green fruit, and told Oli not to bully Hina. Oli had jumped down from the monster's body, found Hina hidden inside the fruit, and pulled her into a tight hug. The monster's residual energy lingered in the air, which was filled with glowing particles, as if a mysterious power were whispering a warning to Oli that a stronger force would come to challenge his protection of Hina. In a dimly lit cave, Oli carefully arranged Hina's green, intricately patterned dress, a faint light seeming to flow from his fingertips. They set out and came to a lake, its clear water sparkling as if under a spell. The swamp, once filled with poison mist, was no longer dangerous. Hina looked at the treant in the lake, her eyes full of sadness. Oli gently put an arm around her and led her onward to their next magical journey. Oli and Hina continued north on the white horse, searching for the dwarves of Iron Ridge Mountain. Although the center of the swamp had begun to purify, it would take time for the whole land to recover. Hina, even without Oli's mark, was no longer afraid of the poison mist. Her floral crown glowed faintly as if with a purifying power, and the mist cleared wherever she passed. They were overjoyed to finally be out of the swamp, but they saw a tide of refugees on the mountain path ahead. They were dressed in rags, their faces weary. Hina felt something was wrong. Oli asked what refugees were. She teased him, saying he was like a little prince who knew nothing of the world. Hina decided to ask someone herself. She approached an old man and asked for the way to Iron Ridge Mountain. The old man was surprised. "Why would you want to go north at a time like this?" he asked. He told them there was a man-eating monster in the north. Hina asked what the monster looked like. Oli, listening, thought to himself that he used to visit human settlements all the time and had never seen a man-eating monster. The white horse even seemed to think the old man was talking about Oli. The old man didn't want to say more and urged them to flee. After they left, Hina felt that such a large-scale migration was unusual. It was something you only saw during a war. She worried that if what the old man said was true, they would face new dangers if they continued north. Oli told Hina he was excited, which left her a bit confused. He added that he had never seen a man-eating monster and wanted to keep going. Hina agreed. They saw a small town ahead and decided to rest. But when they arrived, they found it dilapidated and deserted. A faint, ancient, magical mist hanging in the air. Only a small tavern showed any signs of life, as if it held some unknown magical secret in the lonely town. Oli and Hina walked into the tavern, a bell on the door chiming softly. The room instantly fell silent, the air thick with a strange tension, as if an unseen magic were at work. Hina's heart pounded, and she stayed close to Oli. Suddenly, the tavern owner cheerfully greeted them as new customers and offered them a drink. The other patrons joined in, cheering. Hina warily warned Oli to be careful, but Oli, without a second thought, grabbed the drink and chugged it down. Hina asked the tavern owner for a room, and he enthusiastically led them to one. He mentioned that she looked tired and that the tavern had hot water for a shower, but they were short-staffed and couldn't bring it up. Oli didn't say anything. Hina thought about how they had been traveling for a long time and really needed a rest. Then she noticed there was only one bed in the room. Oli told Hina to wait in the room while he went to get the hot water. After a while, she heard a knock on the door. Thinking it was Oli, she opened it to find a woman with purple hair who begged for her help, saying her child was very sick and there were no other women around to help. Hina was hesitant, having promised Oli she would wait for him. But seeing the woman's desperate expression, she softened. "Don't worry," she said. "I know a little healing magic. If it's an emergency, bring your child here and I'll take a look." The woman paused, as if she hadn't expected Hina to say that. A glimmer of hope appeared in her eyes. The woman cried that her child was too sick to be moved and that she couldn't handle it alone. Hina remembered her teacher's warnings, but seeing the woman's plight, her heart went out to her. She asked for her room number and said she and Oli would come to see the child as soon as he returned. The woman, overjoyed, fearfully told her she was in the last room down the hall and then left. Hina closed the door, her mind filled with questions about the northern refugees. She also thought with a wry smile that without Oli, she would probably be just like them, lost in this magical but unknown world. Hina heard a knock and, thinking it was Oli, happily opened the door. In that instant, a thick wooden club swung at her. She let out a short cry before everything went black, and she collapsed into the arms of the purple-haired woman, whose smile looked sinister in the dim light. When Hana regained some awareness, she was being carried over someone's shoulder. She heard a bald man telling the purple-haired woman to hurry, that Oli was coming back. Oli returned with a bucket of water, but got no answer when he knocked. A bad feeling washed over him. He kicked the door open, to find the room empty. Hina was gone. The bald man swung his club at Oli. Oli, his eyes sharp, raised his arm and blocked the blow, sending the man stumbling back in pain. Oli then grabbed him by the throat. Another man tried to attack him with a dagger, but Oli caught him in a headlock. The carriage jolted along the rough mountain road. Hina was curled up inside, her mind hazy. The purple-haired woman lifted the curtain and looked at the unconscious Hina, a strange red light flashing in her eyes. The carriage sped on, heading toward the distant mountains, before stopping in a forest. The purple-haired woman told her accomplice to keep watch for pursuers. She entered the carriage, looked at the unconscious Hina, and gently stroked her cheek, cooing, "My little beauty." She propped her up and gave her some water. Then she began to change Hina's clothes. When she undid the dress, she saw the strange mark on Hina's shoulder. Her pupils constricted, and her fingertips stung as if they had been burned. The mark was glowing with an eerie red light, as if magic were flowing through it. After dressing Hina in refugee-like clothes, she looked at the original gown, adorned with pearls and gold thread, and smiled with satisfaction. But when she saw the wooden floral crown on Hina's head, she tossed it aside in disgust. Just as she finished, her accomplice came over. He saw Hina and was captivated by her magical beauty, and a lecherous thought crossed his mind. The purple-haired woman quickly slapped his hand away. "Keep an eye out for pursuers!" she snapped. He sulkily walked away. Meanwhile, Oli, using his ability to sense magical auras, had forced someone to tell him that Hina had been taken toward the Gumany territory. The thought of the troll lands made him so angry he almost crushed the man's neck. After calming down, Oli touched his chest. The mark there had a magical connection to the one on Hina, and he could tell she was still alive. He looked at a map and remembered Hina mentioning the Gumany territory to the south. Am I really going to have to go to that land of vicious trolls? He wondered. Oli mounted the white horse and galloped south. At the same time, Hina slowly woke up in the carriage, her head throbbing as if shrouded in a magical fog. She struggled to sit up and realized she had been kidnapped and was in a strangely enchanted carriage. Hina saw her crown lying on the floor. She secretly plucked a red berry from it. The berry, imbued with magical energy, glowed faintly as she tossed it out of the carriage. A passing girl picked it up. Thinking it was just a normal berry, unaware of the magical link it held between Hina and Ollie, Hina saw a child peeking into the carriage, and her heart sank. She quickly hid in the shadows, not wanting the child to get involved. Hina watched in horror as the kidnapper grabbed the child. The kidnapper grinned and threw the child into the carriage. "A little playmate for you, my beauty," he said. The child hit the floor hard and whimpered. Hina looked on, shocked and worried. The child, seeing Hina, was terrified. Hina was filled with regret, blaming herself for not being more careful and putting the child in danger. She tried to soothe the child, and a faint golden light of comfort seemed to gather in her hand. Just then there was a commotion outside. The purple-haired kidnapper threw open the curtain. "What are you doing, grabbing a kid?" she yelled, a whip with dark magical runes in her hand. She lashed her companion. "Is your brain the size of your balls? The others aren't here yet, and you're making things worse." "She came to us," he protested. "Are we supposed to let a golden goose go?" The purple-haired woman grew even angrier and whipped him again. "Told you, we don't sell kids. Say one more word and I'll send you to your grave." She looked into the carriage, where Hina was holding the child, a faint golden light of comfort surrounding them. "Please let the child go," Hina pleaded, crying. The purple-haired woman considered it. "Kids' parents will definitely come looking for her. We'll drop her off soon. If it's not too far, they'll find her. Got it? Let's go." "Okay," her companion replied. An old man's anxious voice called out, searching for someone named Popo. The child in the carriage heard him and cried out in response. Hina sensed danger. One of the kidnappers looked menacingly at the old man and pulled out a dark, magical-looking knife, lunging at him. The old man cried out in terror. In that critical moment, a powerful wave of magic burst from Hina. She shielded the child as blood splattered on the carriage curtain. Her eyes burned with rage. "You animals!" she snarled, a furious magical aura surrounding her. The purple-haired kidnapper, her face a mask of anxiety, yelled, "Let's get out of here!" The carriage sped away. Hina looked out the window, tears streaming down her face. "Ollie, where are you?" The discarded crown lay in the grass, glowing faintly. Ollie rode through the forest, his gaze fixed on the south. Then he spurred his horse on, but he was heading in a different direction from the carriage. As Ollie rode through the forest, he noticed a strange tree in the distance. Its branches were twisted and glowed with an eerie light, making him uneasy. The white horse was also startled and neighed, coming to a sudden stop. "What is that thing?" Ollie wondered, staring at the tree. The more he looked at the tree in the direction of the camp, the stranger it seemed. An image flashed in his mind, and he suddenly realized, it's the old man's crown. He turned his horse around and yelled excitedly, "To the camp! Hiya! Hina must have left it for me. She loves me so much." The white horse, though a bit exasperated, galloped back toward the camp. Ollie saw the magically enchanted tree, which was pointing in a specific direction, and recognized the crown at once. He took it, the red berries on its vines glowing faintly. Then he spurred the white horse on, galloping east with all his might. The pendant on Ollie's chest glowed with a faint purple light. His eyes were determined. "Hina, I'm coming." Meanwhile, the purple-haired kidnapper was comforting the frightened child. Hina, watching them, began to sob. The kidnapper, perhaps feeling a pang of pity, removed the gag from her mouth. Hina quickly told her that the child's only family was her grandfather and that she couldn't be left alone. The kidnapper was surprised and asked if she had any other family. Then she scolded her companion for causing so much trouble. Hina, her eyes full of tears, asked where they were taking her. The purple-haired kidnapper looked Hina over, her tone malicious. "A tender little beauty like you will sell for a good price to the nobles in the kingdom of Trank." Hina's mind raced. She knew the king of Trank had a bad reputation, as did his ruling class. Whether she was a commoner or an exiled princess, falling into their hands would be a disaster. The purple-haired kidnapper told the crying child to get out. Hina pleaded with them not to leave the child, saying she had no one else and couldn't survive on her own. The kidnapper replied coldly that life was hard for common people, and that he had already let the child go. The rest was up to fate. Before Hina could say more, an arrow suddenly whizzed by, cutting him off. "Who's there?" everyone shouted. A red-haired man on a horse appeared. He and his attendants looked at the scene. "A kidnapping gone wrong, or are you fighting over the loot?" he asked mockingly. Hina studied the red-haired man's clothes and guessed he was a noble from Trank. But she knew their reputation was terrible and debated whether to ask him for help. The man rode closer to the carriage and saw Hina, he said. "Such a beautiful woman, how could you bear to tie her up?" Just then, Hina's crown appeared. and flew at the man, who cried out in pain. At that moment, Ollie arrived on his white horse, calling Hina's name. Hina, overjoyed, called back to Ollie and the horse. Ollie rushed to her side and gently held her in the flower-filled, magical-looking forest, comforting her. Then, his eyes hardening, he held up a rope that seemed to crackle with magic and demanded to know who had dared to tie Hina up. The red-haired man was mesmerized, thinking, "He's so brave." Ollie looked at the purple-haired woman. "Was it you?" The woman frantically shook her head. Impatiently, Ollie turned to the red-haired man. He immediately denied it, offended by Ollie's glare. He then began to praise himself, saying that a gentleman like him would never tie up a beauty like Hina. It was his destiny and honor to save her. He tried to get closer to her. Hina quickly pulled her hand away. "That's not necessary." Just then, Ollie punched the red-haired man. "Get lost!" he roared. The man cried out in pain. Hina and Ollie then saw a kidnapper holding the child hostage. "The little lamb and the white horse are mine now," he shouted. The white horse, as if it had a magical intelligence of its own, looked confused. "Whitey, don't listen to him!" Hina yelled. But the kidnapper urged the horse to run. In that critical moment, the horse reared up, and both the kidnapper and the child nearly fell off. "No, someone save the girl!" people shouted. Ollie shot forward and with a burst of magical energy saved the child. Ollie tossed the child to the purple-haired kidnapper. "Watch her," he said. Looking at the fallen kidnapper, he snorted, saying he deserved to have broken his neck. Hina, still shaken, thanked Ollie for saving the child. Ollie told her not to worry about them and to focus on continuing north to find the dwarves. Hina obediently agreed. The purple-haired kidnapper comforted the crying child. The red-haired man looked in a mirror, complaining about his bad luck. Hina asked him why a noble from Trank was on the run. The man, still shaken, said that a strange thing had appeared in the capital. He thought it was a monster, but no one believed him, so he had decided to escape. Hina felt something was off. "Don't you think that's strange, Ollie?" she asked. She held his hand, her voice full of worry. "There's a man-eating monster in the north, and something is wrong in the east, in Trank. Am I really limited to going north to the dwarves?" Ollie looked at the vast forest and the distant mountains, sunlight filtering through the leaves with a magical glow. "Maybe there's another way," he said slowly. In the magical-looking forest camp, Lane looked at the freshly dug grave and sighed. He concluded that the old man buried there had been killed by the purple-haired woman's now-dead companion. The woman holding the child was silent for a moment before saying angrily, "That bastard got what he deserved." She admitted she hadn't meant to kill the child's grandfather, but then said mockingly that she wouldn't make excuses for herself. "What do you want from me? To pay with my life?" Lane smiled and gestured to the side. "That's for those two to decide." Hina handed Ollie some apples. "You need to eat to get your strength back." Ollie's eyes were full of longing for meat. Hina pushed the apples into his hand. "Just bear with it for now. We'll have meat later." Ollie ate an apple and asked, "I thought you wanted to go to the dwarf mountain. Why the hesitation?" Hina, her face full of worry, didn't answer. Ollie squeezed her cheek. "Don't worry," he said seriously. "I won't let you get separated from me again. No matter who comes, you won't have to be afraid. I promise." Hina agreed, but then admitted it wasn't the bad guys she was afraid of. The lesson from the Highland camp was one she only needed to learn once. Hina remembered visiting the Dwarf King with her father when she was a child. The Dwarf King had greeted her father as an old friend and had wanted to hug her. But the young Hina had playfully tugged on his beard, making him yelp. The Dwarf King had then proudly told her father that he had several handsome, bearded princes for Hina to choose from. Her father had quickly refused. Later, Hina had smiled and held out her arms for her father to pick her up. Now, Hina held a red apple, her expression worried. She knew the Dwarf King and her father were close, and he would surely take her in. But she was afraid the regent wouldn't care, and would start a war between the two kingdoms. The setting sun cast a magical golden glow over the camp. Ollie was sulking. When Hina asked what was wrong, he puffed out his cheeks, imagining roasting a dwarf prince's beard, a small flame even appearing in his palm. Hina didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Ollie patted Hina's head and said he didn't want to see any bearded dwarves, but was curious about the man-eating monster. He told her he would go with her wherever she wanted. "What if we don't go to either place?" Hina asked playfully. Ollie was stunned. In the sunset, a magical light flickered in Hina's eyes. She told Ollie that the monsters appearing everywhere and the homeless refugees might be an opportunity. Ollie understood immediately. Hina looked at the others and mentioned the poison mist swamp, the place where no one was said to have survived. The purple-haired woman was shocked, thinking that going there was a death sentence. But Hina, with a hopeful smile, said she wanted to build a sanctuary in the poison mist swamp and asked if they would join her. Lane and the purple-haired woman were stunned. In the swamp? Lane asked. Have you been deep inside it? Yes, Hina replied confidently. The swamp is dangerous, but we made it out alive. Who are you people? Lane asked in disbelief. We're just like you, Hina said with a smile. Refugees. Lane said he had seen what they could do and thought that following them might be a shortcut through the swamp. The purple-haired woman was confused. I thought you were building a sanctuary in there. Lane waved his hand. My destination is the coastal kingdom of Posado, on the other side of the vast swamp. The royal family there are my distant cousins. I plan to seek refuge with them. Hearing this, a magical light flickered in Hina's eyes. The kingdom of Posado, she whispered. That night, under a sky full of magical diamond-like stars, the purple-haired woman called out that dinner was ready. She brought the food, and Ollie, not caring that it was hot, began to wolf it down. Isn't that hot? Hina asked, surprised. Ollie just grunted smugly. Later, Hina leaned against Ollie. The pendant around his neck glowed faintly in the darkness, as if with a magical power. Ollie asked if Hina's last name came from her mother. Hina nodded, saying her parents had died in an accident when she was very young and all she had left of her mother was her name. She mentioned that her mother was from the kingdom of Trank and might be a distant relative of Lane's. Hina put down her bowl and continued her story. After her parents' death, the regent had taken control of the kingdom. She and her sister were not allowed to leave the palace or meet with envoys. Only her teacher dared to defy the regent's orders and occasionally take her out to see the common people. This had angered the regent, who told her sister not to be like her. Later, the regent had accused her of treason and thrown her into the dragon's cave. Luckily, she had met Ollie and escaped. When she mentioned the evil dragon, her tone was a little proud. Hearing about the regent, a cold light flashed in Ollie's eyes. I'll remember him. Hina and Lane sat by the campfire. Lane asked where the tall knight was. Hina smiled and said Ollie was setting up their sleeping arrangements. She then asked Lane softly if he was going to the kingdom of Posado to seek refuge with the princess, and if his family had any connection to the royal family there. Lane said proudly that the Queen of Posado was from his family, the Lanes. But he lamented that the queen had died in childbirth. Hina was surprised. Lane continued, saying that the elders of his family said the queen had died to save her only daughter from the same fate. After that, the king of Posado had been consumed by grief and had died in an accident a few years later. As Hina listened to Lane's story, she was filled with confusion. Her only daughter, she murmured. Then whose daughter am I? The scene shifts to the royal palace of Posado. Strange purple and pink lights dance in the night sky above it. The regent, dressed in magnificent robes, stands before a shimmering, watery portal. The silhouette of a giant sea beast can be seen within. He smiles and greets it. Hello, my friend from the deep sea. From the portal, a sea beast with green scales, yellow fins, and glowing eyes emerges, hissing, a mysterious purple lightning crackling around it, as if carrying the ancient magic of the deep sea.